Alrighty, I'm going to put my smart person glasses on for a second because I'm about to address Bill Gates. Now, Bill, bit pissed off at the whole vaccine thing, obviously. But I refuse to live in a world of warfare. So we need to come up with an agreement about where this went wrong. Now I'm going to take these fucking things off because they're confusing me. And I'm going to put it down to almost like a simplistic left brain, right brain type argument. But it's not that. It's between people, analytical people that are second to none, like yourself and like a lot of computer engineers out there that have dealt with these worlds and these systems, and your intelligence is something to be marveled at, and your dedication, all these things. I can see that. And despite my being upset by obvious transgressions against myself under the protection of this, I understand the economic factors that led to all that and the missteps that were taken. And so, considering we're both salesmen of Windows, we need to come to some type of agreement in the middle, and we need to find out where we went wrong. Now, I've been dealing with this situation my entire life from the back foot. And it's basically that we have an administrative, managerial type cohort of the workforce and of the population, yourself being one of those. And then we have a more practically based physical out there in the world actually doing the things, which is where I live. We could call this speculative individuals, and we could call this operative individuals. Now, you are obviously operative within your landscape, but your landscape is speculative in its nature. And so with the fact that you have advanced your capabilities and your intelligence and your observation of that area, you are blinded by some of the real world in which things just don't work like that. And that's basically as much as I can say. You have a blind spot. Yeah? If you were an old man driving, you would lose your license because you were blinded by certain things of the world. And one of them is because you have elevated based on just certainty, but the fact that digital products had this amazing thing of being able to be copied and pasted, which made manufacturing non-existent almost, and the fact that just overheads and costs went down. So this elevated you in the market, which elevated you in the thing. And it just took 20 years to catch up and for us to realise how bad it is. But we need your tools. I'm going to use the tools. I'm using a tool now. I use the internet. I use computers. I need robotics. I need all the things. I need AI. I need everything. The problem is I'm a practical project engineer, organizer, observer, designer type person on the ground in the real world. And we have been so attacked and so dispossessed by this tech elevation, which is purely just financial. I know it raised in the stock market, you got the money, you were doing your job. I understand the whole thing. There's no hard feelings about that. It's a massive force, like massive just misstep in humanity. And it's lucky that you've got, because we get down to all this discrimination, racial stuff. Unfortunately, it almost became perceived that the way we're outsourcing things to China and we're using that arbitrage, the tech community has been, and the administrative managerial community and the political class has been having that same outsourced mindset to manufacturing and to construction, to material, everything in the real world. Because its ship was rising, this superiority of these individuals, and I would have been swept up in the same thing. In fact, if I'm on the opposite trajectory now, if I'm headed up that ladder, I'm considering getting a tattoo on my arm that says fucking stay humble, don't forget. Okay, you didn't have the same, you had a little bit of it, but You maybe picked on or something like that when you were young, but not enough to kind of concrete it in. That my number one concern, if I elevate out of this trench that you've put me in, is to stay humble and not forget where I came from, not forget who I am, and not forget the other people that are still down there, whether they're in my country, whether they've got my skin color, or whether they're in Bangladesh ripping minerals out of a mine. The problem has physical world problems and societal problems. And although computers are going to be an amazing tool, and AI is going to be amazing tool, without productive, capable, and nimble folk on the ground that have that running capacity, the throw them into hell and come out with a garden approach, and that thing, using all the tools, using the connection tools, using the networking tools, and using the AI tools and the research tools and the robotics tools, everything like that. They're the individuals we need, and they're the ones that have been dispossessed by the elevation of the tech world, by the digital world. And we're pissed off about it. Yeah. And you need us. I don't need you technically. I need you if I need your tools and things to operate at a fast pace, so that we can make these changes, fix the problems, and get the stuff done in a timely manner. But I don't need you if time wasn't an issue. And the only reason time is an issue is because of our markets and because of our tech digital entrapment, where we are constantly stimulated for new things. And so I can simulate that new novel thing and that constant growth with projects on the ground using your tools. And the way I would do it is to produce content explaining it, and to recruit that way, and to build interest around projects. And I believe this distributed approach is just a more economically stable and more societally enhancing strategy. But I understand your approach of mass purchase of land, and I assume you, with alliances of companies that you've researched and are in cooperation with, probably a lot of those things will show merit. Unlike a lot of extreme kind of organic permaculture, green-esque, hippie type people, concepts such as de-elevation of combining commercial production with agroforestry and things like that. Even concepts still like using fertilizers and downgrading from them. There's a whole liturgy of things. I'm not an extremist when it comes to this. I'm a realist. I understand there's businesses out there. I understand there's millions of hectares of land that need solutions, and I've permanently planted myself on the edge of kind of the urban and the regional areas in my state, and this is where my energy and my research has been, is to create strategies that connect these regions both financially and societally and environmentally leaning, but not extreme-sided environmentally leaning. So still using the techniques that have allowed us to create such high levels of production, but designing in and usually in the unused or the degraded areas, designing in experimental, diverse belts of regenerative, human-friendly and environmentally friendly biology and microbiology and all these things, and using technology to fast track that, and using leaders that have shown themselves to be effective in communicators to kind of recruit the army, because the army of on the ground, innovative, effective project managers, and perhaps working with existing chemical companies or machinery companies or technology companies to create an ecosystem of support and finance and of public relations material and of marketing and of cooperative approach to the whole thing, rather than, say, a one-trick pony rollout such as the vaccine, which I was very critical of. My strategy is always focused on unused, degraded areas, experimental with people with a diverse range, and then select the winners from that in non-crucial infrastructure. So rather than, I think with the technology that you've gotten used to with your rollouts of your programs and businesses and things, you were 100% right. The strategy you used was 100% right, and obviously successful because you've done so extremely well in that area. I worry that the same strategy is being used in either environmental systems out in the wild and in our biology, whether in animals or plants or in humans, is just it is exposing us to a reckless kind of amount of variables that are outside of our control. And so I'm almost flipping, my suggestion is to almost flip, and it will utilize, if anything, a lot more technologies that you're more familiar with, rather than these experimental, divergent and invasive strategies of down in the microscope stuff. It's more about using technology distribution to scale up very small, perhaps very out of the ordinary biological amendments and strategies to create an amazingly scaled approach to broadacre degraded landscapes. I don't exactly know what your particular focus is with the agricultural region, whether it is the environmental damage, whether it's the production level, whether you're trying to increase production, whether you're trying to experiment with concepts that just happen to be hobbies of yours. But I think there are, say there's a strategy permaculture people use called chop and drop, which is basically just planting of leguminous trees and then harvesting them to increase carbon in the soil and to increase and activate biology in the soil. Now, in certain systems, this is incredibly labor intensive, but these can be designed with robotics and automation to be incredibly low energy input experiments, and they act as kind of like a foundation to then individually experiment on regions once you've got at least a level of ground cover and then at least a level of biological activation and reactivation of the soil to kind of undo the damage caused by the chemicals. The interplay between our microbiology and our herbology or our greenery and plants has been massively neglected. And it's similar to, in my opinion, of what happened with the vaccine. It's similar to the interaction between our immune system and viruses and things like stress. And so one of my opinions at the moment is that, look, I consider what's happened the last 4 years from my perspective to be a war enacted onto me. But I'm trying to only use that wording with select individuals to not elevate the sociological response of a wartime period, because I believe that caused so much traumatic onflows from the two previous world wars that actually sat and lay dormant, and activated this kind of pseudo war that we've just been through, in a very uncontrollable, very, very dangerous and scary way. And I think the activation by the media and the things, perhaps in good spirits, actually creates the very landscape of fear and terror that that a virus would thrive in. In the natural environment, it's quite common to see a plant that is being stressed or being dispossessed, attacked and taken out by biology, by bacteria, by insects, by things like that. And so I can see and look, I'm one of the most extremely critical people on earth of this thing. Yeah, you've upset me very much. It took me a lot of work to reverse engineer your conditions and what you like, to put myself in your shoes for a very long time, to understand what perhaps led you to do these things. And I'm very observant of you of late, and I've been trying to feel out your response and feel out your reaction and understand it, and then eventually I end up falling back to intuition. And my intuition is that you stand by your decision. Perhaps I think you're just taking a scientific approach, but that's humanity you're dealing with, and that's the world, and you don't own it. And so I'm hoping to send this to you, have a conversation this way. Perhaps you could be the first person to respond. That would be lovely. I think that'd be a great moment. And I believe there's a way to shift perhaps your perception, to open up the perhaps immoral concept of experimenting in this way, but then open up a sufficient avenue for you to experiment in, using all your skill set, using your tools and your experience to create a viral campaign of rapid, reparative biological design in cooperation with computers, with artificial intelligence, with robotics, with all types of things that your experience set comes from, so that when we look out the window we see trees and we don't see a desert blowing in, basically. And I think I can show you how to do that. And I think you will be, with perhaps just a slight bit of humility, and I can put all those things aside because this is something I'm passionate about, and I do want to experiment in a way at scale. And I believe you could probably help me do that. And I'm not going to say there's absolutely no chance of mistakes, but the mistakes will be in underutilized, degraded areas, and they'll be biological mistakes and carbon-based mistakes that and physical, material-based mistakes. We're not jumping in and muddling with things that we don't fully understand. And if there's one thing I can tell you, it's that I can guarantee you we don't fully even understand the reality we're in. And if you want, you can run a program over my content for the last 3 years and do a statistical analysis of all the unbelievable and very statistically impossible coincidental timings, coincidental foreshadowing, and coincidental predictive things. So I'm either one of the greatest pattern recognizer on earth, or I'm some type of genie. And I would say it's the first. I'd say my pattern recognition skills have been so highly developed, and this is a human ability that I've developed from being in the practical world, and it's a blind spot that you have. And I believe with your skill set in the speculative and my skill set in the operative, and in degraded biological regions as opposed to in our human biome, we could we could do some pretty amazing things. We do in Australia have a extremely gigantic desert area, and that is the place that I would suggest to you to make glow like Emerald City itself. Perhaps a under the radar style thing, with a timeline of about 10 years or something like that, with some pretty exciting, sorry, my phone's running out of battery, I'm sure you'll understand, given that you probably started this whole game with one of those modems where the phone goes on the little polystyrene thing, and so I'm laying down doing this. But I think that's, if you bring Australia an oasis in the desert with the help of a fucking local, you could pretty much put this previous 4 years well and truly in your wake, in the minds of even the fiercest opponent of yours during this. So, yeah, I'll leave it with you. The race is on again to be the first person to make contact from the other side, to extend an olive branch, perhaps literally, because olives are a wonderful Mediterranean species producing oil, which is food, fuel, all those things, and was of course, the end of the desert. So that's a suggestion. Take it or leave it. But yeah, I think you'd be amazed at the results. And it might assist, I'd say almost definitely you'll be able to assist in the Scale Matters project as well, which is sitting somewhere in the ether at the moment. That's all I can really say about it. Somewhere in the ether, about to be dropped on the world.